Hi, Merete.
Hi, Serge.
So today we're going to be talking about what sustains you.
Mhm. Yes, yes. So I I saw this part of your website, What Sustains You. I think it's half a year ago, and
Mm-hmm.
it really made me curious.
Mm.
Um, and then I think I contacted you in the early fall or something and said that I would like to do that. And then I got so enormously busy, and then kind of let it go for a while. And then I'm doing better. I have more space now. And then it came up again.
Mhm.
So here we are. But
Here
it
we are.
means that it has actually, in some ways, this question of what sustains me has been in the background of my head
Yeah.
and my sensory system for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what in a way fascinates me is that it's as if I can answer from very different levels of me,
Mm-hmm.
where there's this uh, I don't even know what to call it, but there's this very concrete level of a lot of things that I do for self-maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
I do exercises in the morning to keep my joints smooth. I do types of meditation. There's a lot of structures in my life.
Yeah.
Um, and, and that clearly is part of how I sustain myself. But it's not a satisfying answer for me. you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was
So,
the first thing I discovered.
so what you're talking about is that the question is a very deep one and has many
Yeah.
levels.
Yes.
And the obvious level is the self-maintenance,
Yes.
and that's of course very important, but
Mhm.
that's not satisfying.
No, it doesn't answer what sparkled my interest,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And then the question comes: what is it that goes deeper with this question of how I sustain myself? And I thought of just giving an example um, from these past weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
That would be wonderful. That's great.
Um, I have been in quite a lot of stress with this whole COVID-19 situation because it doesn't matter why, but there has been really high stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I got stress symptoms, and I ended up in the emergency room because I had pain in the left side of my chest. It turned out that everything is fine on that level. My heart is doing good. And I was sent home with the message that this is probably muscles, which happens to be my specialty. And I kind of knew it already. I was aware of it. Maybe this is muscle spasms because
Mm-hmm.
of stress. Maybe it's because they start letting go. I don't know. But it was really good to go to the emergency room because then I could let go of the fear
Mm-hmm.
and just start sensing into this. What is it that's going on in my chest? What is it that's going on in my breathing? And that then started a really fruitful process of dealing with the tension in my chest, the tension in my breathing that has a long, long history behind it. But finally, it's as if I could start reaching into it and also have some contact around it with an old colleague.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then in this contact with him, because he basically focused on my chest, on my ribs, and kind of a certain rigidity in that. It loosened, and then I said to him, you know what I would add if in my way of working, now that we have dealt with the tension,
Mm-hmm.
I would be curious about where the the giving up part is.
Yeah, yeah. So let's stop here a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot I want to summarize and add a
Mm-hmm.
little thread. So that moment of potential danger
Yes.
related to the heart,
Yeah.
you eliminate the medical possibility that there is something wrong, and it
Yes.
brings you to actually what is the topic that you have been
Mm-hmm.
specializing in: muscle tension, things that
Mm-hmm.
have to do with the muscle. You work with a colleague and deal with the tension.
Mm-hmm.
Now, want to say,
Yeah.
what about what I actually am that very interested in, which is the parts that are the opposite of tense. And so
Yeah.
maybe let's do a little parenthesis to kind of talk a little bit about that for
Mm-hmm.
people who don't know about it, and then we'll come back.
Okay. So this is really what I have specialized in for many years. It's to be able to deal with the opposite of tension, but this flaccidity that we can go into and giving up parts of us, and then we barely don't feel them anymore. It's like parts of us go vacant, right? And they hold a whole different challenge to us than the tense parts, because the tense parts are typically noisy.
Mm-hmm.
Where these flaccid parts or low energized parts, they don't speak loud. They speak with very thin voices. You know, they don't ask for attention. They hide, which is why we so easily don't hear them.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's this trained, you could say, it's this trained ear in me that emerged in that situation. It's that I
So,
know that when there's tension, really high tension in one place, there will be a different place that has this quality of vacancy.
yeah, yeah. And so that's very important that the tension places are very loud. We hear them. And so if we
Yes.
deal with it, we feel we've taken care of the issue. But
Yeah.
actually, in some way, the higher, the louder the tense parts are, the less we are aware of the parts that are already silent.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
we really miss out on how there's a whole part of us that we're not listening to.
Yes. And that has information about this pattern that we are dealing with,
Yeah.
right?
And so, with that episode, what happened
Uh-huh.
recently is
Yeah.
that you were brought in to actually deal with it in a very concrete way for
Yes.
yourself,
Yes, I
with that
was.
same level of surprise that somebody who doesn't know about it can
Mm.
experience. Because even
Mhm.
though you knew it, you were
Mhm.
so caught up in what you were doing that this happened and caught you by surprise.
Yes, and in the same time, I'm really satisfied that when I got the attention from my colleague for the tense parts,
Mm-hmm.
I started getting curious myself. He didn't do it; I did it myself.
Yes,
I
yes,
said,
yes.
"Okay, now I'm curious about where is it? Where is the corresponding place in me that is not on board?"
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
I started tracking my body, and then I discovered this place right on the front side of my sacrum.
Mm-hmm.
So the very lowest part of my spine,
Yeah.
not my center area, but lower, front side of sacrum.
Mm-hmm. So the lowest part of the spine in the front.
Yeah, yeah. And then I immediately started using my own methodology, which is to do tiny, tiny, small movements that
So
bring
maybe
energy into that area.
before there,
Mm.
just again, how did you discover that place, which by definition is
Yeah,
silent, invisible,
yeah.
hidden?
See, that's a good question. And I do think this is where we link to this question of what sustains me.
Okay.
Because it's a specific capacity to listen really deeply inside and and expect that there are areas that are hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing that knowledge or that expectation that they are there helps me to track them. You know, it's like I'm looking with a searchlight, but I'm looking for something really small.
Yeah. So like an astronomer, where they have calculations that shows there should be a planet
Yeah.
there or an asteroid or something.
Yeah.
And then they can direct the lens toward it
Yes.
because they expect it. Otherwise, they would never see it.
That's a good, I like that comparison. And I think that has, because it's a knowing that there, in a way, there should be more energy in that area. Or there could be more energy. It's not a should as much as there could be. Optimally, there could be more energy there, but there isn't.
Yeah. And so when you look casually, you notice there's not too much energy. You don't notice anything. But if you look with the idea, I'm going to pay attention to see where I don't have as much energy as could be, then you start to notice the area.
Yes. So there's some comparison in it, you know, both comparison with other areas, but also comparison with how it could be.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of inner hearing, I have trained that for many, many years. So as soon as I ask myself and I start questioning, I start tracking my whole body, I discover it. Right? And then this thing happens that when I then have localized, okay, so there's something with this front side of my sacrum. And I start doing tiny, tiny, small cross movements, just tiny, small rotations. And I feel life energy in a subtle way coming back to that area. And as soon as I feel that, then the tension in my rib cage diminished.
Wonderful. So I'm going
and that
slowly.
moment, I feel a deep, deep happiness.
Great. So I want to go a little slowly.
And meaning.
I want to go a little slowly there before we go back to the happiness and meaning.
Yeah.
The how to. So you discovered that area, the lower part of your sacrum in the front, which has low energy. And so what you're doing is the same way as, say, you're talking to a person who is very shy. You start engaging that person very slowly, very gently.
Yes.
So it's not a question of big movement, but very slow and gentle movements.
Yeah.
And as you do the very slow and gentle movement, then there's something very satisfying that happens.
Yes, because it's as if something clicks. No? It's as if there's a little light that is turned on.
Yeah, just like a little light that's turned on. Yeah.
Just bing, or a little sound you can suddenly hear where there was silence, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this feeling the connection between the tense area and the low energized area.
Yeah.
That as soon as the low energized area turns on, it impacts the tension.
Yeah. So now you just notice in the moment how as that party comes to life and gets engaged, then the tense area gets less tense.
Yes. And even if I had tried that many times, both with myself and with people I work with, there's some sense of almost miracle every time it happens.
Yeah.
Because it's so small and it has such a deep impact.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not a discovery in the sense that you know it, you've spent your life working on it with yourself and others, but just the moment when it happens, it feels miraculous.
Yeah. Like coming home or... And if I then go back to this, what sustains me, it's like those moments, they give me an experience that change is possible.
Yeah.
Change is possible also in the places where we have lost it. We have given it up. We don't even know that it's available. And to reach those places and have this experience that change is actually possible, that would be one of the deeper answers for me to what sustains me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that gives me a very deep feeling of meaning and hope and joy and kindness and space. And I could use a lot of words for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So change is possible.
Yeah.
Not as an abstract concept, but something that you feel, because you feel in yourself that sensation of the miracle of change. You were one thing, and then something click, as you said, a light turns on, that's a little ding, and something is change. It's subtle and it's very profound.
Yes, you got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and the meaning that comes with it is, you say something that expanding. There's a lot of, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of that sense of, there's something opening up, something expanding. I want to stay with that a little bit of what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's anchored. That experience of the expansion is anchored in a tiny, tiny little movement.
Yeah, the experience
inside my pelvis, right?
Yeah. The experience of expansion is anchored in that tiny, tiny moment.
Yeah.
And
if I start making it big, I think that's the essence of it. It's that it's not changing something; it's change that emerges.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there.
Yeah. So that's not the efforting to make change happen, but something that change emerges, and it's not passive either, because you made something, you did something, you created some preconditions, you listened carefully, you went very attentive, but at the same time, it's emerging. It's not something that you force.
You got that right, because it's also then the days after these last weeks. Now and then I remember it, and then I just do this tiny, tiny little movement. And every time I discover that it has an impact on my breathing, that I breathe easier. So you are right. It's not efforting, but it is doing something, because it's paying attention, and it's consciously adding something to a place that could flip back into disappearing. Right? So it benefits from being noticed. Or being called out, but in a very gentle way.
It benefits from being noticed. And if you remember that little moment, then a day later, several days later, you can come back to it. By just remembering that moment.
And by doing the tiny little movement again.
And doing that little movement, yes.
Just touching into that, and then sensing the impact in my body.
Yeah. So the sense of it is, you say touching that. So you're not literally touching with a finger, but as you do the movement, it's as if doing the movement actually touches on the center of opening or expanding or being fully alive or something like that.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
there's something in this, also just sharing this right now,
Mm-hmm.
that that subtle process, that sustains me.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
contact with myself
Mm-hmm.
in that subtle level, and the contact with you and with other people, it's
Yeah.
as if that carries me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that it holds me. It provides some sort of container deep inside for my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So something about the contact with this little
Yeah,
movement, that little experience, but also the contact with me, the contact with
yeah,
others, talking
yeah.
about it
Mm.
together. There's something in which they both, it's not separate, it's not one and the other, but there's some kind of a complement, there's some kind of way in which it works together,
Mhm.
being very connected, that little tiny level inside, at the
Mhm.
same time as the connection with others, this kind of a unity.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And this suddenly reminds me of a, a whole different experience I had some years back, which is about music. And a, a composer who's also a physicist, who had done research about black holes and uh, how cells behave when they are close to black holes,
Mm-hmm.
and then had cooperated with a musician about translating this state of the cells into music, something like that, right?
Wow.
And I heard that concert with a cello player who then played a piece that went into a slower, kind of slower notes than I had ever heard before. And most of the audience fell asleep, and I was wide awake. I felt touched in that same place.
Yeah.
That there was resonance between those kinds of notes.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
notes that were very, very, very slowed down. It
yes,
was very similar to that
so
process of
yeah,
slowing down.
yeah,
And maybe there's something related to that experience of the physicist about being at the edge of the
of
black
black
hole.
holes.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. So the
mm.
disappearing that's there. Mm.
So I felt the same resonance there, which was a big surprise for me, because I'm used to feeling this, kind of establishing this resonance with people who work bodily,
Mm-hmm.
right? There I know we can open up to resonance in that level. I didn't know that it was also possible to translate it into music, which was a really joyous surprise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So something about a really, really very deep experience and understanding that maybe that experience can take many forms,
Yes.
can experience it in different settings.
Mhm.
And so that surprising aspect of how
Mhm.
it can be conveyed by music.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Mm.
Mm.
So connecting maybe to a very deep quality of human experience
Mm.
that probably in some ways people have had through the ages without
Yes.
necessarily being aware of it the
Yeah.
way you conceptualize it,
Mm.
but that it is part of our human heritage. It's
Yes.
something Yeah.
And it's not a problem.
Yeah.
No, it's not something that should be different. It's not something that should be solved.
Mm-hmm.
It's a state in us that has that very slow and subtle quality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? And there's something about including that and inviting it in, that I do this with my hands, right? It's as if that provides a container.
Yeah, yeah. So you have your hands not necessarily visible in the screen because the banner
Yeah,
screen hides it, but you have your hands.
I do like that.
Yeah, yeah. So
Right?
you create kind of a container, shape
Yeah,
the container with your hands.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's where it connects to being sustained.
yeah,
There's something about that inclusion
yeah,
that feels like that uh, that provides sustainability,
yeah, yeah. And
like
so,
change that can last.
yeah, I'm hearing something in there that there is, it's a, we have the container.
Mm.
So that's something outside. And the experience is very deeply inside, very subtle. So
Yeah.
there's something about, again, that relationship that both, either they're both aspects of it, or there's something in which there's a relationship, but, the experience, that inner experience of change is associated also with the container.
Mm. Yes, in some ways, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe, maybe it's the relationship is that those places that are given up in our
Mm-hmm.
physical body,
Mm-hmm.
they leave energetic holes in our container
Mm-hmm.
because energy leaks there. So
Yeah.
whenever I can discover a new place where I didn't know, I didn't know beforehand that this front side of my sacrum was in that category. I have never localized that specific place before.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly, when I do that, it's as if my very physical container for my life energy gets a little more hold.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It
So
holds me better.
so there's two sides that I'm hearing, and I want to check if that's what you mean. There's an aspect in which the container is, say, the paying attention gently to the part, which
Yeah.
allows it to show up. But there's also the fact that as the part shows up and is engaged,
Mhm.
then it
Yes.
provides a better container
Yes.
for our life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a very satisfying experience
Yeah. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
getting more hold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Getting more whole.
Mm.
Yeah. And so you were mentioning before, this is not a problem. And yet when we started with, well, it was, we were very tense, and so
That's right.
maybe the reason you start going there is a problem and something, and so solved it.
Yes.
Um, but
Yes.
that finding it is actually something that doesn't correspond to the category of just problem solving, but it's an
Yes.
experience in and of itself
Mhm.
that actually widens your
Yes.
experience of life.
Yes. And that includes these very slow parts of us, the subtle parts. Uh, and instead of kind of making them wrong,
Mm-hmm.
it's a process of including them in who I am.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Um,
the image of the container comes back again because in some way it is making a bigger container, or
mhm.
or putting
Yes.
putting
Yes.
yeah,
Widening who we are.
yeah.
No. that we are also these parts that are much more silent and harder to hear and slower, and
Mm-hmm.
that's also us.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And so I'm coming back right now to that sense of expansion you were talking about, and that sense of, just a happiness about,
Yeah,
finding these
yeah,
parts, finding myself, finding yourself that way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which then stimulates an in-breath.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So instead of being tense up here and a little gone down there in the sacrum,
Mm-hmm.
it's like more awareness down there on the front side of the sacrum. Then here I am, I want to breathe.
Yeah.
It just ignites that deep impulse of taking in life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is a very joyous experience.
Yeah. So your phrase is a deep impulse of taking in life.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I have enjoyed these last weeks.
Yeah. But I'm hearing also maybe something about some kind of maybe a rhythm that, there are times where having to accomplish things, um, you need, or we all need to get into a mode of being more driven. And maybe that's where the tense parts take over in order
Yes.
to do the difficult part. And then there is that sense of now, okay, we've got there and we don't need to stay in that tense mode, but now open up and pay attention to more.
Yes.
Yeah,
More of us.
more of us. Yeah. But so is that kind of in your mind also kind of a rhythm, a sense of moments of
Yes.
expansion? Yeah.
Yes. And I certainly, that rhythm is, I had been in a very tense state for months,
Mm-hmm.
managing lots of stuff, also managing too much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this whole process I describe is getting back into a much better rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
healthier rhythm. And this process of accessing both the slow, subtle part of me and the tense part is part of being able to be with myself in that rhythm,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that rhythm, that knowing both parts and being with them and have tolerance for both of them and acceptance of them, etc. That there's sustainability for me in that.
Yeah, yeah. So being with yourself in that rhythm is
Yeah,
what makes it possible to be sustainable.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
It's kind of fun to put words to it, Serge.
Yeah.
I'm not used to I'm used to talking a lot about these muscle patterns but I'm not used to putting these words to it. And I think
Yeah.
that is what attracted me to this particular conversation.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Yes. Yes. Mm. Mm. So let's just take a moment to see if there's something more that you'd want to say, or if it feels right.
well, there is an aspect more of what
Mm-hmm.
sustains me, but it's in a whole different category.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be shifting gears.
Why not?
Okay. Uh, what sustains me is also colors.
Mm-hmm.
I just love colors. I always dress up in colorful clothes. I love colors around me. I have painted for many years. I don't do it now. I do digital art pictures, posting them on Instagram. I always do it in ways that is not figurative, but that is just energy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something in that that is It's a deep source of nurturing for me.
Yeah.
And without that, I would. Um, so it feels right for me to think of it as part of what sustains me energetically.
Yeah. 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 So something about the attraction to color,
Yeah.
not just in clothes, but also in painting
Yeah.
or in digital art.
Yeah.
And there is something that in what you do that it's about the finding, seeing, representing the energy,
Yes.
and doing that sustains you energetically.
Yeah. And it's what I'm aware of is that it's about how I see the world. I have a big green plant just next to me here
Mm-hmm.
with leaves and everything. And I can look at it in two different ways. I can look at it and see a plant with its leaves and different sizes of leaves and the I don't know, there's a leaf and then there's a tiny little branch that connects to a bigger branch. They are a little red. So I can see the structure. If I look that way, the plant is there and I am here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can shift to just, I don't quite know what it is I'm doing, but I stop seeing, it doesn't matter that this is a plant. I just sense this being over there, and I just sense the color and I connect with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I feel that greenness and the little redness. I sense that inside of me also.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Right? I open up my senses to it.
Yeah.
And I think that way of seeing, where it does not matter at all what we call this thing, that it's called a plant or what name it has or how old it is, or it's there and I am here and we communicate.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
That shift, it is, if I get too stressed, I lose that shift.
Yeah.
If I can get back to that shift in just short moments, I rebalance.
Mm.
I get back in in what, in being, in feeling connected, in and that sense of connection is essential for me in what sustains me.
Yeah. 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 So I want to maybe summarize a bit what you've said to see.
Uh-huh.
So there's you take the example of a plant that's
Yeah,
next to you,
yeah, it's right here.
and noticing how you can see it as a plant.
Yeah.
So a sense of you see the outline of a plant, you notice it, it's a category, it's a plant, case closed, that's what it is. But there's also a way in which you can look at it
Mm-hmm.
and not be prisoner of just having categorized it and having, in a way, a stereotype reaction to how you would react to a plant because it's a plant. But kind of that thing is put aside, and you don't so much worry about what does it or what is not,
Mm-hmm.
but you just simply sense into a connection with whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a very different nature of connection with that.
Yes.
And there is a kind of an energetic connection to that something,
Mm-hmm.
instead of being prisoner
Yeah.
of how you are supposed to react to a plant.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right.
as you do that, you notice that actually, with more stress, you lose that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
With stress, you tend to kind of simply go, well, it's a plant. And then,
Yeah.
so there's something that kind of a narrower, doesn't
Yes.
have that wideness, that openness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I can help myself. If I discover that now I have shut it down, I can choose to do it.
Yeah.
It's not that I lose the capacity, I forget to use it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So if I can just discover it, then it's one of the things that makes me capable of tolerating lots of stress without losing my aliveness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what happens is under stress, the default mode is to kind of look at things in that narrow way.
Yeah.
But if you remind yourself, if you remember, there's also that other way of looking at it, then
Yeah.
you can get back to it.
Yes.
And that helps you
And it
change.
relaxes me. It opens me. It nurtures me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, it's a very I don't know the word, rich possibility to have, because I can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
And colors is the easiest aspect of the outer world that stimulates this way of relating for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any color that I like, and it could be any of them. It's not that it needs to be green or blue or red, or it's rather multicolors. In
Mm.
my office, I have all the colors. I have it in pillows and in some of my paintings on the walls. It's in a subconscious way. It keeps my sensory capacity open.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe you say sensory capacity open with the
Yeah.
colors. So a sense of maybe that there is, when you simply engage with the plant as a plant in a category,
Yeah.
you might be in a more cognitive role,
Yes. More
but
left brain.
yeah. And that from the left brain, the switch to the right brain, where the sensory capacity is the colors are like friends that say,
Yes.
hello, come here. And so it
Mm-hmm.
attracts your
Mm-hmm.
capacity to
It does.
be in the right brain
Yeah.
because you connect with that friendship of the colors.
Mm.
And then you have that expanded view of yourself from that place.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
that's another aspect that came to me when I asked this question of what
Yeah,
sustains me.
yeah. And so, in some way, I feel it's very related. And I'm
Mm.
stopping from trying to articulate some kind of a logical reason why it is,
Yeah.
and just simply staying with a
Mm-hmm.
sense of the feel of it feels
Mm-hmm.
very connected. The feel of
Yeah.
discovering something, the feel of the resonance, the
Mm-hmm.
feel of a resonance with a part of you,
Yeah.
that the color in a way, might wake up the sensory part of you or
Yes.
something, but that
Yes.
kind of an interaction, a waking up, an
Mm-hmm.
expanding, and, that feels very, very related.
I'm with you. I thought the same thing just before you said it. That in a way it's two different things I brought in, but they are related.
Mm-hmm.
Inside of me, they are related without logic. They
Mm-hmm.
just are. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Mm. Hmm. And so something about a different interaction with the world, a different way of being in the world, a different way of being yourself, a different way of sensing yourself, a different way of experiencing yourself and the world, and so, yeah, but also related to something that's the opposite of the stress and depleted.
Yes.
So of how that's kind of
Yes.
a replenishing.
Yes, of filling, of fullness, of being nurtured,
Mm-hmm.
being sustained, being held, all those qualities.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so what comes up for me is a sense of at the moments of stress, we might feel isolated, we might feel depleted,
Mhm.
and we might feel that what we need is not available.
Yes.
And part of the magic of what you experience in both cases is, oh, it's actually, it was always there. You
Yes.
know, it's that little thing inside, that little
Totally.
part that you wake up, but it's the color that's there if only you look at it in a certain way.
Certainly.
And so that sense of it's always been there.
Mm. And it is there in the moment of the stress. It's still there. It's a
Hmm.
question of if I can open up to it.
Yeah.
It's there right next to. No.
Hmm.
Um, that is comforting.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. So let's just take a moment to see if that
Mm.
would place to end or if you want to add something.
You know, but part of me could go on. And another part of me thinks, yeah, this is a good. We we kind of held it
Yeah.
in a full way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so maybe that image at the end, you do the thing with the move of the hands and you say, we
Yeah.
kind of held it. And so it feels like what's coming up is that sense of container. And it might
Yes.
be a good place to kind of bookmark the end.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Merete.
Yes. Thank you.